Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. Few gold rush stars have captured audiences quite like Tony Beets, the Dutch-born miner who turned Yukon mud into millions. But lately, fans can't stop asking one question. What really happened to him? From fiery controversies that landed him in court to wild internet rumors claiming he was sentenced to life in prison, Tony's story has become a mix of fact, fiction, and pure chaos. So how did one of TV's toughest miners end up at the center of so much speculation? Stick around because the truth about Tony Beets might just surprise you. Tony Beets' story begins on December 15, 1959 in the Netherlands. Born to Klaus and Magda Beets, Tony grew up in the small village of Weidenis, where life on the family farm taught him two things early: hard work and a love for heavy machinery. When he was just 7, his family moved to Bergwoerd in Friesland. But life wasn't easy. After his father had a serious accident, young Tony had to step up and take over most of the farm duties. That experience shaped him, building a sense of toughness, confidence, and maturity that would help him through every challenge ahead. Even though he came from generations of farmers, Tony never saw that as his final destination. By his early 20s, he was itching for a change. So at 23, he and his girlfriend Minnie, who would later become his wife, took a huge leap of faith. With only $300 in their pockets and no knowledge of English, they left the Netherlands behind and headed to Canada, landing in British Columbia. It was a bold move, and survival meant hustling from day one. Tony's first job in Canada was milking cows in Salmon Arm for $4 an hour, but that wasn't cutting it, so he switched to construction work. Within just a week, he was promoted to foreman, proving how quickly he could adapt and lead. Over time, he learned to operate heavy machinery and worked on oil pipelines, gaining valuable experience that would later define his career. Meanwhile, Minnie worked just as hard, taking on jobs in retail, healthcare, and food service to help keep their dream alive. Then came the rumor that changed everything. Word spread about workers up in the Yukon earning over $1,000 a week mining gold. For Tony, that was all the motivation he needed. In March 1981, he packed up and headed for Dawson City. But when he got there, he discovered he was too early. The gold season hadn't started yet. With no jobs available, he returned to British Columbia to keep working the oil fields. Still, that Yukon dream never left his mind. 3 years later in 1984, opportunity finally knocked. A mining company called him back to the Yukon and Tony didn't hesitate. He started small, operating heavy machinery at the Tamarack mines, the same mines he would one day own. That's where everything began to shift. Eventually, Tony launched his own mining company, Tamarack Inc., right in the Dawson district. Through hard work, determination, and a little bit of luck, it grew into one of the largest privately owned placer gold mines in the entire Yukon territory. But success didn't come easy. With only about 7 months of mining weather each year, Tony and his crew worked 12 to 14 hours a day, pushing through brutal cold, unpredictable machinery breakdowns, and non-stop pressure. His philosophy was simple. Gold mining only works if you're there every single day making it happen. He understood that even with all the effort in the world, luck played a huge part. One season could make you a millionaire, and the next could wipe you out completely. That's why he leaned on his team, especially his family. Minnie became the backbone of the operation, handling all the bookkeeping and financial decisions. She was smart, disciplined, and sometimes the only one standing between Tony and a risky investment. Their kids, Monica, Kevin, Mike, and Bianca, all joined the family business over time. Tony admitted he was tougher on them than anyone else, but he also made sure they were paid fairly and understood what hard work really meant. Even with the brutal schedules, his kids kept coming back every season, and when the mining season ended, they traveled together, giving Tony a chance to just be dad instead of the boss. With his family by his side, Tony kept expanding. He secured his first major claim at Paradise Hill, followed by new ones at Indian River and Clear Creek. His ambitions didn't stop there. He went on to restore 2 massive historic gold dredgers capable of processing enormous volumes of earth. Now, Tony's rise to TV fame really took off during Season 2 of Discovery Channel's hit series Gold Rush. His tough, straight-shooting attitude instantly made him stand out. That season, the show's main figure, Todd Hoffman, who was struggling to keep his mining dream alive, turned to Tony for guidance. For anyone unfamiliar, Gold Rush, originally titled Gold Rush Alaska in its first season, follows several family-run mining crews as they chase fortune across Alaska and Canada. The show first aired in December 2010 and centered on 6 men from Oregon who had lost their jobs and decided to risk everything on a gold mining adventure in Porcupine Creek, Alaska. The twist: none of them really knew what they were doing. With cameras rolling, they learned mining the hard way through trial, error, and a lot of frustration. Todd Hoffman led that first crew, and from day one, he was buried in problems. His biggest headache came from his wash plant, a critical piece of equipment that kept breaking down and killing productivity. Luckily, the team's mechanic, James Harness, managed to keep things running, barely. Todd eventually brought in his friend Dave Turin, a seasoned professional who'd worked in his family's quarry, to help get things back on track. But the season wasn't short on drama. When mining expert Dakota Fred Hurt entered the picture midway through, tensions exploded. One episode even saw things boil over into an all-out physical fight among crew members. Still, after all the chaos, the Hoffman crew managed to pull through, ending the season with 14.64 ounces of gold, enough to prove the dream was possible and secure the show's renewal for a second season. That's when Tony Beets made his entrance. He first appeared in an episode called Drill or Die during season 2. It wasn't a major role, but it made a lasting impression. Todd Hoffman's operation was falling apart, and Tony stepped in with one crucial piece of advice: test drill before mining. At that point, Todd's crew was losing faith in his leadership, so Tony's advice ended up saving the day. By then, Tony already had a reputation as one of the Klondike's most successful and respected miners, and people listened when he spoke. What many thought would be a one-time appearance quickly turned into something much bigger. Tony returned to the show multiple times, often acting as a mentor to young miner Parker Schnabel during Parker's first independent season. By season 4, Tony was no longer just a guest. He was a full-fledged cast member, bringing viewers into his own world at Paradise Hill in the Dawson mining district. Paradise Hill, located in the heart of the Yukon's legendary Klondike region, became one of the show's most recognizable mining sites. It's the same area that sparked the original gold rush in the late 1800s, and to this day, Tony and his family continue to pull gold from that very ground. One of Tony's smartest moves came during season 4 in August 2013, when he decided to lease his Scribner Creek claim to Parker Schnabel. That decision paid off big time. Parker managed to haul in an incredible 1,029 ounces of gold, shattering Todd Hoffman's previous record of 803 ounces. Ironically, even though Tony was already a seasoned miner before joining the show, his early seasons on Gold Rush were far from easy. He struggled to keep pace with the fierce on-screen competition, but in classic Tony fashion, he didn't back down. Then came season 5, and that's when things took a wild turn. Instead of sticking with the usual wash plant setup, Tony went all in on a bold idea: buying a massive 75-year-old gold dredge and bringing it back to life. This wasn't just some rusty old machine. It was a genuine piece of Klondike history from the original Gold Rush era. For Tony, this wasn't about nostalgia. It was strategy. The dredge represented his belief that old-school, large-scale mining methods could still outshine modern approaches. It was the perfect reflection of his go-big or go-home mentality. But reviving something that size wasn't going to be easy. The restoration quickly became one of the most ambitious projects ever featured on the show. The challenges were endless: mechanical breakdowns, weather issues, transportation nightmares, and constant safety risks. Yet Tony never backed down. Between managing the rebuild and running his operation at Paradise Hill, he pushed forward with his trademark determination. By the end of season 5, the dredge still wasn't fully operational, but the groundwork had been laid. The crew's relentless efforts set the stage for its dramatic debut in later seasons. It was a reminder of Tony's vision, his willingness to bet everything on a piece of mining history and turn it into a modern gold powerhouse. That fearless mindset is exactly why fans call him the Viking of the Yukon. But in 2014, that Viking spirit got Tony and his crew into serious trouble. During the filming of Gold Rush, the Tamarack team decided to perform what they jokingly called a Viking baptism for the dredge, hoping to change their luck. Their method: pouring gasoline into a pond and setting it on fire. As flames roared up, Tony stood by watching, fully embracing the chaos. When the episode aired in 2015, it stirred immediate controversy. Viewers were shocked, and the Yukon government wasn't laughing either. Officials charged Tony, his company, and his employees with violating the Yukon Waters Act. specifically for depositing waste in a water management area and failing to report it. A welder named Mark Favron pleaded guilty to 1 count and paid a small fine. But the case didn't end there. Prosecutors pushed for a much heavier penalty of over $30,000, arguing that Tamarack Inc. should also be held accountable. During the court hearing in Whitehorse, footage from the episode was shown as evidence. The clip captured Favron dumping gasoline into the pond before setting it ablaze, with Tony watching the entire event unfold. Yukon's chief mining inspector, Robert Savard, testified that his office learned about the incident after a complaint from Environment Canada, triggering the investigation that led to the charges. Favron claimed he hadn't realized he was being filmed and described it as a spontaneous act done for fun while off the clock. But the judge, Peter Chisholm, wasn't convinced. He made it clear that Tony could have stopped the stunt but didn't, and that his participation in the filming made him fully responsible. The court even suggested that the publicity from the show benefited Tony and noted his lack of remorse. After the case, Tony admitted he should have known better. He acknowledged that as the man in charge, he should have stopped the act before it happened. In the end, he accepted the fine and described the whole ordeal as a joke that went too far. What's wild is that most fans didn't even realize the fire was real. A lot of people thought it was just some over-the-top TV stunt until the news broke that Tony and his crew had actually been found guilty in court. So, when Gold Rush came back for its 12th season in September 2021, Tony was fired up and ready to prove a point. This time he had his eyes on a massive goal, 9,000 ounces of gold. To get there, Tony went all in, dropping a jaw-dropping $5 million on a new fleet of heavy-duty machines to reopen his Indian River operation. And on top of that, he kept his Paradise Hill claim running around the clock, 24 hours a day, non-stop. But then came the curveball that changed everything. Tony didn't have a water license for Indian River, and he knew that was no small issue. After his past run-ins with the government, including that infamous Viking baptism controversy, he wasn't trying to get into more trouble. So, with cameras rolling, Tony set out to finally get the paperwork approved so he could dig into one of the richest gold areas in the Yukon. In one tense moment that season, Tony walked into the office to find out if his license had been approved. The crew waited in silence. When he returned, his face said it all. The application had been rejected. He'd have to start over and resubmit the entire thing. Anyone who's dealt with government paperwork knows what that means. Months of waiting. And for a miner working against the clock, that was time he simply didn't have. It was a crushing setback. Tony had already poured millions into preparing for Indian River, and now that investment sat idle. Later, when he broke the news to his family, the frustration was clear. He admitted that no other claim could ever match Indian River's potential, calling it the family's piggy bank. Still, Tony and his crew didn't walk away empty-handed. They ended the week weighing in over 227 ounces of gold, worth more than $400,000. It wasn't enough to offset the losses, but it was proof that Beets wasn't going down without a fight. That's the reality of gold mining. Huge risks, massive investments, and no guarantees. And as always, Tony handled it with that trademark toughness. When one door closes, he just moves on to the next dig. Fast forward to season 13, and Tony Beets came back with the same relentless energy, chasing another massive goal. 5,000 ounces of gold. This time, he had to juggle everything from aging machinery to unpredictable Klondike weather, all while running multiple cuts across Paradise Hill. But that's where Tony thrives, in the chaos. One of his smartest moves that season was bringing his Eureka wash plant back into play. Instead of letting it sit unused, Tony leased it to Shane at Dominion Creek. It was a clever business play, turning dormant equipment into profit while helping smaller miners boost their own output. Still, the season wasn't easy. The crew faced breakdowns, hydraulic leaks, shredded conveyor belts, and endless supply chain delays. But Tony's hands-on leadership kept everything moving. His kids, Kevin, Monica, and Mike, were right there beside him, tackling problems, managing logistics, and proving they were ready to carry the Beets legacy forward. When equipment failures threatened production, Tony pulled another bold move. He revived the long-neglected Moose Creek trommel, a plant that had been sitting useless for seasons. Once repaired, it became the key to keeping gold flowing during a critical stretch. That moment summed up Tony's mining philosophy perfectly. Adapt fast, use what you have, and never let a busted machine stop progress. Despite all the setbacks, The Beets family ended the season on a high note, hauling in over 4,600 ounces of gold, worth more than $7 million. It wasn't just a victory. It was a testament to their work ethic and determination. Running operations around the clock, expanding into new cuts like 80 pup, and constantly tweaking equipment paid off big time. And Tony didn't stop there. He took things a step further by leasing land to the Winchester crew, a group of rookie miners working the Hunker Cut. Acting as both landlord and mentor, Tony shared his knowledge and helped guide them through the challenges of the season. The result, the newcomers hit their 200-ounce goal. It was a proud moment that showed just how far Tony's influence had come. He wasn't just mining gold anymore. He was building a legacy, turning his empire into a training ground for the next wave of Klondike miners. But even with all that success, controversy still had a way of finding him. In April 2025, a wild rumor started spreading online, and it quickly caught everyone's attention. The story claimed that Tony and Mike Beets, two of the biggest stars from Discovery Channel's Gold Rush, had been sentenced to life in prison. Within days, the claim exploded across social media, especially on YouTube and TikTok. One video posted on April 2, 2025, titled "Tony Beets and Mike Beets from Gold Rush, sentenced to life imprisonment," racked up over 210,000 views in no time. Another popped up just a week later, spreading the same outrageous claim. Some fans believed it instantly, while others started digging for proof, asking questions and checking sources. But here's the truth. None of it was real. There were no arrests, no convictions, and no life sentences. The whole thing was just another viral hoax built to grab attention and boost engagement. Snopes and other fact-checkers confirmed that not a single credible outlet had reported any legal trouble involving the Beets family. The rumor was just one of many fake stories targeting popular reality TV stars to farm views, likes, and shares. The confusion likely came from a real event in Tony Beets' past, his actual brush with the law. During his time on Gold Rush, Tony faced charges for violating the Yukon Waters Act. The case stemmed from an incident where gasoline was poured onto a dredge pond and set on fire during one of his mining operations. It was dramatic, sure, but instead of jail time, Tony faced fines and cleanup costs, along with some major delays in securing new water licenses. Despite the controversy, he kept his operation running and never spent a day behind bars. Another reason Tony often ends up at the center of controversy is his rocky history with fellow miner Parker Schnabel. Their relationship started off strong. Tony was a mentor to a young Parker, helping him take over his family's Big Nugget mine. But the friendship soured once business got involved. Tony leased land to Parker, but the royalty structure buried in the